26 May 1941. North Atlantic, approximately 300 nautical miles west of Brest. A flight deck entry aboard HMS Ark Royal logs 15 ferry Swordfish ranged at 1910 hours. Their maximum speed, approximately 138 to 140 miles per hour. The target, Bismarck, approximately 41,700 tons, 838-centimeter guns, and modern directors, fresh from sinking HMS Hood and damaging HMS Prince of Wales 2 days earlier. Each Swordfish carries a single 18-inch Mark 12 aerial torpedo, approximately 1,548 pounds total, with a warhead of approximately 388 pounds TNT. In the morning, Admiralty estimates concede the risk of losing contact. In the evening, a terse communiqué reports success. Torpedo bombers of the Fleet Air Arm have scored a hit, steering gear disabled. Rudders jammed. Speed and maneuver restricted. An ocean chase becomes a fixed engagement area. The home fleet will close at dawn. The key number is 1. One stern hit that converts tactical contact into operational certainty. Question: how did slow biplanes create the decisive mechanical failure aboard Germany's most modern battleship? 22 to 24 May 1941. Denmark Strait and North Atlantic. An Admiralty duty officer annotates a morning situation map. 2 German heavy units, Bismarck and Prinz Eugen, have broken into the Atlantic. The chart shows their projected courses threading between Iceland and Greenland, aimed at the convoy routes that sustain Britain. German planners expect a rapid sortie for commerce interdiction with refueling options at predetermined rendezvous points. British planners seek to prevent disruption of convoy routes at all costs. The stakes are clear. If Bismarck reaches the shipping lanes, the arithmetic of merchant tonnage will shift dramatically in Germany's favor. Admiral Gunther Lütjens commands the operation from Bismarck's bridge. Captain Ernst Lindemann serves as the battleship's commanding officer. On the British side, Admiral Sir John Tovey coordinates the home fleet response from HMS King George V, while Rear Admiral Frederick Wakewalker shadows the German force with cruisers HMS Norfolk and HMS Suffolk. The Denmark Strait engagement on 24 May produces a stark asymmetry that neither side fully anticipated. At 0552 hours, Hood opens fire at approximately 25,000 yards. The range closes rapidly. At 0600 hours, a salvo from Bismarck strikes Hood. The explosion is catastrophic. Within 3 minutes, the battle cruiser breaks in two and sinks. Of her crew of 1,418, only 3 survive. The shock ripples through the British fleet. The Royal Navy's most famous warship destroyed in moments by a ship on her first operational sortie. But Prince of Wales continues the engagement despite technical problems with her newly installed 14-inch guns. Several of her turrets experience mechanical failures, yet she scores 3 14-inch hits on Bismarck before breaking off. One shell strikes amidships, causing minor flooding. Another penetrates the forecastle. The third, the critical hit, strikes underwater near Frame Station 21, breaching compartments and contaminating forward fuel tanks with seawater. Approximately 1,000 tons of fuel become unusable. The oil contamination creates a visible leak, a dark trail on the ocean surface that aids British shadowing efforts. German operational plans suddenly tilt. Admiral Lütjens signals Berlin. Fuel status compromises the ability to conduct extended commerce raiding. The decision is made. Bismarck will detach from Prinz Eugen and proceed to occupied France for repairs. The sortie transforms from an offensive operation into a defensive race. British files record the assessment. Proceed on assumption enemy turn towards Brest. The chase begins in earnest. Force H under Admiral James Somerville, comprising carrier Ark Royal, battlecruiser Renown, and cruiser Sheffield, receives orders to steam north from Gibraltar at maximum speed. The fuel contamination imposes a mathematical constraint. Bismarck's range to safety narrows with each hour. The oil trail provides a visual marker for shadowing cruisers. A gunnery triumph at Denmark Strait conceals a logistic failure that will define the next 3 days. The question is no longer whether Bismarck can disrupt convoys, but whether she can reach France before the home fleet closes the distance. The margin is slim. Admiral Tovey's heavy units steam southeast. The geometry favors interception, but only if contact is maintained. On the night of 24 to 25 May, Bismarck briefly evades her shadowers through a course change and rain squalls. For 24 hours, her position remains uncertain. The operational calculus shifts. British planners face a window. If Bismarck reaches French coastal waters, Luftwaffe cover will make surface engagement prohibitively costly. The task becomes maintaining or regaining contact and slowing the German battleship before she enters protected waters. The tool for that task is carrier-based torpedo aviation. The Swordfish solution, conceived 2 days before the decisive strike, rests on a vulnerability created by a single 14-inch shell that struck Bismarck's bow on 24 May. Fuel defines the geometry. Air power will exploit it. 25 to 26 May 1941. Northeastern Atlantic approaches to France. At a coastal command station, a Catalina search grid is chalked on a plotting board. Bismarck's last confirmed position is hours old. The Atlantic is vast. The margin for error is narrow. Admiral Tovey's heavy units steam on projected intercepts, but without fresh contact, the pursuit risks becoming a fuel-limited failure. The Royal Navy faces the possibility of an unopposed German run to Brest under Luftwaffe cover. At Royal Air Force Coastal Command, search patterns expand. The PBY Catalina flying boat, with its endurance of up to 24 hours and long-range fuel capacity of approximately 1,804 gallons, becomes the primary reconnaissance asset. At 10:10 hours on 26 May, a Catalina from No. 209 Squadron sights Bismarck. The aircraft, piloted by Flight Officer Dennis Briggs with Ensign Leonard B. Smith, an American naval observer, aboard, breaks cloud cover approximately 700 feet above the ocean surface. Bismarck is approximately 300 nautical miles west of France, steaming southeast at reduced speed. Anti-aircraft fire erupts from the German battleship. The Catalina climbs back into cloud cover after transmitting the sighting report. The contact message reverses the information deficit. Naval Headquarters Historical Center summaries note the fix restores the Allied position. The geometry of pursuit locks into place. Admiral Tovey receives the report aboard King George V. Force H, steaming north from Gibraltar, now has a target within range of Ark Royal Swordfish. Rear Admiral Wakewalker's shadowing cruisers adjust course. The chase, momentarily uncertain, regains momentum. British staffs calculate intercept possibilities. King George V and HMS Rodney can reach firing range by dawn on 27 May, if Bismarck's course and speed remain constant. If she accelerates or maneuvers, the window closes. The imperative becomes clear: Bismarck must be slowed. Carrier aviation offers the only immediate option. Ark Royal accelerates to launch position. The carrier's meteorological officer reports wind conditions and cloud base suitable for operations but challenging for navigation. Sea state is rough, wave heights approximately 15 to 20 feet. Admiral Somerville authorizes strike preparations. The first challenge is identification. Radar contacts must be correlated with visual sightings. Cruiser Sheffield maintains radar and visual shadow at extended range, transmitting periodic updates. Her position is approximately 12 miles ahead of Bismarck on the German ship's port bow. At 14:50 hours, Ark Royal launches an initial strike of 15 Swordfish armed with torpedoes fitted with duplex, magnetic pistols. The magnetic pistol is designed to detonate beneath a target's keel when passing through the ship's magnetic field, maximizing hull damage. The strike proceeds through rain squalls. Visibility is marginal. Radar returns show a contact ahead. The Swordfish attack. The contact is Sheffield. The British cruiser maneuvers violently, firing recognition flares. No hits occur, but 11 torpedoes detonate prematurely due to magnetic pistol sensitivity to sea state. The strike is recalled. The error is clear. Duplex pistols are unreliable in rough seas. Ordnance crews aboard Ark Royal work rapidly to rearm the returning Swordfish with contact pistols. Simple impact fuses less susceptible to environmental factors. The change requires time. Meanwhile, Sheffield maintains contact, maneuvering to remain outside Bismarck's main battery range while providing continuous position updates. Destroyer screens under Captain Philip Vian close from the east, despite fuel concerns. The lattice of surface units tightens. The Catalina's fix enables surface shadowing. Surface shadowing enables a corrected torpedo strike. The chain of reconnaissance, communication, and coordination functions as designed. The question is whether the Swordfish can deliver. The second strike is scheduled for evening, exploiting twilight conditions to complicate German anti-aircraft fire control. 15 Swordfish will carry torpedoes with contact pistols set for a depth of approximately 22 feet and a speed of approximately 40 knots. The aircraft will attack from multiple bearings to force Bismarck into maneuvers that expose her stern. The plan depends on training, coordination, and the inherent difficulty of shooting down very slow, low-flying targets in heavy seas. The stage is set for the decisive engagement. 26 May 1941. HMS Ark Royal Western approaches. Flight deck crews prepare aircraft for the evening strike. Ordnance specialists swap out duplex pistols for contact pistols on 18-inch Mark 12 torpedoes. The change requires careful handling. Each weapon weighs approximately 1,548 pounds fully armed. Deck logs note, 15 Swordfish ranged 1910 hours. The aircraft represent an unusual paradox in modern naval warfare. A biplane attacking the most advanced battleship in the German fleet. The ferry Swordfish enters service in 1936. By 1941 standards, it appears obsolescent. The design features fabric-covered wings, fixed landing gear, and an open cockpit. Maximum speed is approximately 138 to 140 miles per hour, slower than many fighters' landing speeds. Yet the aircraft carries a weapon specifically tailored for anti-ship operations, the Mark 12 aerial torpedo. The torpedo's warhead contains approximately 388 pounds of TNT. Typical settings enable a run of approximately 2,500 yards at approximately 40 knots. Depth settings vary based on target draft and sea conditions. For Bismarck, crews select approximately 22 feet. Production figures reflect the Swordfish's sustained utility. Total production from 1936 to 1944 reaches approximately 2,391 airframes, 692 built by Ferry Aviation and 1,699 by Blackburn Aircraft. The design remains in frontline service throughout the war, eventually outlasting many aircraft intended to replace it. The reason is practical. The Swordfish excels in conditions where more modern aircraft struggle. Low speed enables operations from short carrier decks in rough seas. Structural simplicity facilitates maintenance aboard ship. The three-man crew, pilot, observer, and telegraphist/airgunner, operates with high coordination, essential for successful torpedo delivery at night or in marginal weather. Some aircraft in the strike carry ASV Mark II radar, a primitive airborne surface search set that provides approximate range and bearing to surface contacts. The equipment aids navigation but offers limited precision. Primary attack coordination relies on visual sighting, squadron-level tactics, and timed approaches from planned bearings. 810, 818, and 820 Naval Air Squadrons contribute aircraft and crews. Many pilots have previous combat experience. Lieutenant Commander Tim Could leads 818 Squadron. Lieutenant George Carver and Sub-Lieutenant Ken Pattison serve among the strike pilots. Each crew understands the challenge. Penetrate Bismarck's anti-aircraft defenses, release torpedoes within effective range, and escape without being shot down. The tactical doctrine emphasizes multi-axis attacks. Swordfish approach from different bearings simultaneously, forcing the target to choose which threat to face. Bismarck can turn into one group of torpedo tracks, but that maneuver exposes the beam or stern to others. The concept exploits geometry. A ship's ability to comb torpedo tracks depends on presenting minimal target aspect to the weapons. Multiple simultaneous threats from divergent bearings defeat this defense. The Swordfish's slow speed becomes an advantage in one respect. It enables sharp turning at low altitude, complicating anti-aircraft fire solutions. The Mark 12 torpedo represents years of development in naval ordnance. Unlike armor-piercing shells designed to penetrate belt armor and detonate inside a ship's vitals, the aerial torpedo relies on underwater shock and hull breaching. A hit amidships can flood compartments but may not cripple a heavily armored battleship. A stern hit, however, threatens steering gear, propeller shafts, and rudder assemblies, systems that cannot be as heavily armored without compromising maneuverability. Naval theorists understand the principle: mobility damage converts a tactical problem into an operational advantage. A battleship that cannot steer becomes a fixed target for surface gunfire. Admiralty communiques later summarized the result. Torpedo bombers of the Fleet Air Arm have scored a hit with a torpedo on the Bismarck. The official language is restrained. The operational reality is stark. The evening strike on 26 May will change the geometry of the engagement decisively. Amidships hits will be survivable. A stern sector strike can immobilize the ship. The question is whether 15 biplanes can achieve the necessary hit in deteriorating weather and heavy anti-aircraft fire. 24 May 1941. North Atlantic, evening. 9 Swordfish from HMS Victorious, 825 Naval Air Squadron, lift off into rain squalls. The strike is hastily organized following the Denmark Strait engagement earlier that day. Lieutenant Commander Eugene Esmond commands the squadron. The mission: attack Bismarck at extended range and slow her withdrawal. The aircraft navigate through deteriorating weather using primitive ASV radar and dead reckoning. Visibility drops below 1,000 feet. Cloud base compresses approach options. Contact is established approximately 120 miles from Victorious. The Swordfish approach through squalls at altitudes between 50 and 100 feet. Bismarck opens fire with her secondary armament, 10.5 centimeter and 3.7 centimeter anti-aircraft guns. Heavy spray complicates both attack and defense. Crews maneuver to release bearings, attempting to force Bismarck into turnaway geometry. One torpedo hits Bismarck amidships on the port side. The detonation is observed and confirmed. Crew reports indicate successful attack execution. Post-strike assessment reveals the limitation. The hit does not materially affect Bismarck's operational status. Speed remains near 30 knots. Course adjustments show no steering impairment. Fuel consumption continues at expected rates. The attack demonstrates capability but not decisive effect. Post-action reviews identify critical variables. First, duplex magnetic pistols prove unreliable in rough seas. Sensitivity to wave-induced magnetic variations causes premature detonations or failures to detonate. Second, single-axis attacks allow targets to comb torpedo tracks by turning to present minimal aspect. Third, amidships armor withstands single torpedo detonations without critical damage. The lesson is clear: future strikes require contact pistols, multi-axis coordination, and stern sector targeting. German reports later confirm the hit caused minor flooding in an auxiliary boiler room and temporary speed reduction to approximately 28 knots. Damage control parties seal the breach within 2 hours. The operational impact is negligible. However, the strike demonstrates that Swordfish can penetrate heavy anti-aircraft defenses and deliver ordnance on target. The concept is validated. The execution requires refinement. Lieutenant Commander Esmond's report emphasizes the need for diversified approach bearings and pistol reliability. Admiralty staff incorporate these observations into planning for subsequent strikes. The learning curve is steep and immediate. Within 48 hours, Ark Royal's Air Group will face similar conditions with improved doctrine. The Sheffield misidentification incident on 26 May, where Swordfish attacked the British cruiser, forces a return to contact pistols after 11 torpedoes with duplex fuses detonate prematurely in high sea states. The corrected doctrine emerges: contact pistols, multi-bearing attacks, low-altitude approaches to exploit anti-aircraft depression limits, and coordinated timing to saturate defenses. Victorious Strike provides the operational data that makes Ark Royal's evening attack on 26 May tactically sound. The human element is significant. Aircrew face approximately 120 miles of navigation over open ocean in marginal weather, attack a heavily armed target at wavetop height, and return through darkness to a carrier deck pitching in heavy seas. 8 of 9 aircraft recover successfully. 1 Swordfish ditches near the fleet due to fuel exhaustion. The crew is rescued. The casualty rate is low, but the physical and psychological demands are extreme. These are not high-altitude precision strikes. They are low-level maneuvering engagements where pilots must anticipate shell bursts, maintain formation cohesion, judge torpedo release points visually, and escape at altitudes measured in tens of feet. The victorious strike establishes the template. Subsequent planning refines the method. When Ark Royal launches her final strike on the evening of 26 May, the accumulated lessons, pistol selection, approach geometry, timing coordination, will converge into a single stern hit that changes the battle's outcome. One hit from Victorious on 24 May demonstrates feasibility. One hit from Ark Royal on 26 May achieves decision. 26 May 1941. Western approaches. At 10:10 hours, the Catalina's contact report reaches Admiralty operations in London. Signal pads fill aboard Renown and Ark Royal. The position, course, and speed data enables immediate geometry calculations. Bismarck is approximately 300 nautical miles west of France, steaming southeast at approximately 20 knots, reduced from her maximum near 30 knots, indicating possible machinery issues or fuel conservation. The fix resolves 24 hours of uncertainty. German command anticipates Luftwaffe cover drawing closer with each mile toward France. The Allied air-surface lattice stiffens instead. High-frequency direction finding, HFDF, often pronounced Huff-Duff, plays a supporting role. German radio transmissions, including Bismarck's communications with fleet headquarters, provide bearing lines that, when triangulated from multiple stations, yield approximate positions. Accuracy is limited by ionospheric conditions and transmitter power, but accumulated bearings over time establish probable courses. British Y stations, wireless intercept facilities, monitor German naval frequencies continuously. The operational intelligence picture combines Catalina visual sighting, HFDF bearings, and radar contacts from shadowing cruisers into a composite that reduces uncertainty. Rear Admiral Wakewalker's cruisers, Norfolk and Suffolk, adjust courses to maintain contact without closing to main battery range. Bismarck's 8 38-centimeter guns outrange cruiser armament significantly. Wakewalker must balance information collection against force preservation. Sheffield joins from Force H, taking position approximately 12 miles ahead of Bismarck on her port bow. The cruiser's Type 279 radar provides ranging data in conditions where visual sighting is intermittent. Weather windows are exploited. When squalls obscure visual contact, radar maintains the thread. When visibility improves, optical confirmation validates electronic data. Captain Philip Vian's destroyer flotilla closes from the east. The destroyers, Cossack, Maori, Sikh, Zulu, and Polish ORP Piorun, operate near their fuel endurance limits. Refueling at sea is not possible in the prevailing sea state. Vian calculates that his force can maintain contact through the night of 26 to 27 May and conduct torpedo attacks if Bismarck remains afloat. The destroyer's 4.7-inch guns cannot penetrate Bismarck's armor, but their 21-inch torpedoes, larger and more powerful than aerial torpedoes, represent a credible threat if firing positions can be achieved. Vian's orders are to shadow, harass, and attack if opportunity permits. Search theory in practice. Long-endurance patrol aircraft combined with surface radar pickets create a surveillance net that denies maneuver space. Bismarck's course options narrow. Turning north risks re-engagement with Admiral Tovey's heavy units, King George V and Rodney, closing from the northwest. Turning west extends the distance to France and exhausts remaining fuel. Maintaining course southeast leads into increasing concentration of Allied forces. The operational situation deteriorates with each passing hour. German Fleet Headquarters monitors the situation but can offer no immediate assistance. Luftwaffe units in France lack the range and endurance for effective convoy escort this far into the Atlantic. U-boats are repositioned, but their slow submerged speed limits responsiveness. Bismarck's anti-aircraft crews remain at action stations. The ship's combat log records intermittent air contacts throughout the day. Some are reconnaissance aircraft maintaining visual contact. Others are potential strike formations. Fire control directors track each contact. Ammunition expenditure is monitored. The crew understands the mathematics. If carrier-based torpedo bombers attack, the ship must maneuver to comb tracks, and maneuvering exposes the stern to follow-on attacks. The tactical problem is geometric. The operational problem is fuel-limited. The strategic problem is irreversible. Bismarck is alone, damaged, and increasingly surrounded. The Catalina fix is the pivot. Before 10:10 hours on 26 May, the pursuit is uncertain. After, it becomes inevitable. Ark Royal prepares for the evening strike. The first attack will fail due to misidentification. The second attack will succeed due to corrected pistols and improved coordination. One fix enables both. The question is no longer whether contact can be maintained, but whether Bismarck can be slowed before entering Luftwaffe protection range. The answer depends on 15 Swordfish and approximately 388 pounds of TNT in a single torpedo. 26 May 1941. Approach lanes to Bismarck. As Swordfish form up low on the waves, Bismarck's anti-aircraft battery prepares for engagement. The ship mounts 16 10.5 cm SK C-33 guns in twin mounts, 12 3.7 cm SK C-30 guns, and 16 2 cm Flak 38 guns. The fire control system uses director-based predictions suitable for targets at medium altitude traveling at higher speeds. The Swordfish present an anomaly: very slow speed, very low altitude, approaching at wavetop height in heavy swell. German anti-aircraft doctrine emphasizes centralized fire control. Director stations compute target course, speed, altitude, and range, then transmit corrections to gun mounts. The system excels against conventional medium bombers flying straight and level at altitudes between 5,000 and 15,000 feet. It performs less effectively against targets maneuvering unpredictably at 100 feet or below. Depression angle limits compound the problem. Heavy anti-aircraft guns cannot depress to extremely low angles without structural interference. When biplanes approach at wave height, the engagement window narrows. Guns must track descending targets through sea clutter and spray, calculate leads against slow-moving but maneuvering aircraft, and fire within limited traverse and depression arcs. British action reports note that low-altitude, slow-speed approaches complicate fire solutions. The Swordfish cruises at approximately 120 knots during final approach, slow enough that gunners experience difficulty leading the target. Standard prediction algorithms assume higher speeds. Against a target at 140 miles per hour, computed leads become excessive. Shells detonate ahead of the aircraft. Manual corrections are possible but require experience and judgment. In the failing light of early evening, with heavy seas creating visual interference, accurate ranging becomes problematic. The light automatic weapons, 2 cm Flak 38 mounts, operate under local control without centralized direction. Gun crews track visually and fire based on individual assessment. Rate of fire is approximately 420 to 480 rounds per minute per barrel. The cyclic rate enables sustained fire, but accuracy against crossing targets at low altitude in rough weather is statistically low. Fragmentation effect against fabric-covered wings is significant when hits occur, but the Swordfish's structural simplicity, no vulnerable fuel tanks exposed in wings, engine largely shielded, provides surprising resilience. Pilot tactics exploit the gunnery limitations. Cross-bearing approaches force helm dilemmas. Bismarck cannot simultaneously face all threat axes. If the ship turns to comb torpedoes approaching from port, she exposes her starboard beam to other aircraft. If she maintains course, she must accept torpedo tracks from multiple bearings. The coordination requires timing discipline. Swordfish from different squadrons approach at staggered intervals, compressing Bismarck's decision cycle. German officers face cascading choices: which threat group to prioritize, when to maneuver, how much helm to apply without creating instability in heavy seas. Battle summaries later note, low and slow approaches complicated AA solutions. The statement is restrained, typical of official documentation. The operational reality is more severe. Bismarck's anti-aircraft armament is optimized for threats that do not materialize. The threat that does materialize operates outside the design envelope. The 2 cm mounts score hits, fragments damage several Swordfish, but none are shot down during the critical attack phase. The combination of low altitude, slow speed, heavy seas, and coordinated timing defeats a theoretically superior defense. The gunnery problem is secondary to the maneuvering problem. To avoid torpedo tracks, Bismarck must turn. Every turn exposes the stern, the ship's most vulnerable sector for mechanical damage. Steering gear, rudder assemblies, and propeller shafts cannot be as heavily armored as the main belt without compromising hydrodynamics and weight distribution. The decisive torpedo will not need to penetrate armor. It must deform, jam, or destroy steering mechanisms. Bismarck's anti-aircraft guns can damage attackers, but they cannot prevent a well-coordinated strike from achieving release geometry. 14 aircraft will survive to return to Ark Royal. One torpedo will hit the stern. 26 May 1941. HMS Ark Royal attack lanes. Armorers set contact pistols on 18-inch Mark 12 torpedoes. Torpedo dollies creak as ordnance crews maneuver the weapons into position beneath Swordfish fuselages. Pilots confirm speed and height release tables with observers. The Mark 12 represents decades of torpedo development condensed into a weapon optimized for carrier aviation. Sufficiently powerful to damage capital ships, light enough for single-engine biplanes to carry, and reliable enough for deployment in rough seas and marginal weather. Specifications are straightforward. Total weight, approximately 1,548 pounds. Warhead, approximately 388 pounds of TNT. Length, approximately 170 inches. Diameter, 18 inches. Propulsion, compressed air-driving contrarotating propellers. Typical speed settings, approximately 40 knots for a range of approximately 2,500 yards. Depth settings vary based on target draft. For Bismarck, crews select approximately 22 feet to run beneath the keel in optimal conditions or strike the hull if depth estimation is imperfect. The contact pistol chosen after the Sheffield incident represents a return to mechanical reliability. Duplex magnetic pistols, designed to detonate beneath the target's keel when passing through the magnetic field, prove too sensitive to sea state and magnetic anomalies. Premature detonations and failures to detonate compromise strikes. The contact pistol is simpler, a mechanical fuse activated by impact with the target's hull. It offers less theoretical lethality, no beneath-keel detonation to maximize hydrodynamic shock, but higher reliability. In rough seas with limited visibility, reliability outweighs theoretical advantage. Production and supply chains sustain operational capability. Approximately 2,391 Swordfish airframes produced between 1936 and 1944 ensure repeated carrier-borne torpedo capacity across all theaters. The aircraft's longevity depends partly on weapon standardization. The Mark 12 remains in service throughout the war, providing consistent performance characteristics that aircrew train on and depend upon. Ordnance officers maintain inventories. Supply chains prioritize torpedo production alongside other munitions. Approach geometry determines effectiveness. Swordfish must release at approximately 1,000 to 2,000 yards from the target, close enough for accurate aim, distant enough to allow torpedo run-up to arm status and stable depth. Release altitude is typically 50 to 150 feet, depending on sea state. Too low, and the torpedo may porpoise or broach. Too high, and it may dive too deep or break up on impact with the water. Pilots practice release parameters extensively, but operational conditions introduce variables. Wind gusts, wave interference, target maneuver, and anti-aircraft fire disrupting final approach. The torpedo's warhead is sufficient to cause significant mechanical damage without penetrating heavy armor. Approximately 388 pounds of TNT detonating against a hull creates shock waves, flooding, and structural deformation. Amidships hits cause compartment flooding but may not cripple a battleship with comprehensive watertight subdivision. Stern hits threaten steering systems, rudder assemblies, steering motors, hydraulic lines that cannot be heavily armored. A stern detonation can jam rudders, strip gears, fracture shafts, or flood steering compartments, converting a mobile warship into a fixed target. Naval staff communicates summarized results with understated precision. Torpedo bombers of the Fleet Air Arm have scored a hit with a torpedo on the Bismarck. The operational meaning is unambiguous. Contact pistols convert approach geometry into predictable mechanical damage if stern sectors are struck. 15 Swordfish, each carrying one Mark 12, execute coordinated attacks from multiple bearings. 2 hits are reported during the engagement. 1 amidships port side, 1 starboard quarter near the stern. The amidships hit causes flooding but no critical damage. The stern hit jams the rudders. Bismarck's ability to maneuver ceases. The ocean chase becomes a fixed gunnery engagement. 1 weapon, 388 pounds of explosive, changes the battle's geometry irreversibly. 26 May 1941. Approximately 20:47 to 21:25 hours. North Atlantic. Watches aboard Ark Royal and Sheffield mark time over target as Swordfish dive through squalls toward Bismarck. The attack begins at approximately 20:47 hours. 15 aircraft approach from multiple bearings, port, starboard, and astern, compressing Bismarck's response timeline. Anti-aircraft fire fills the air. Tracers arc through spray and failing light. Heavy shells burst at estimated altitudes. Light automatic weapons fire streams toward low-flying targets. Bismarck maneuvers violently. Helm orders alternate. Hard to port to comb tracks approaching from starboard, then hard to starboard as portside threats develop. The ship's turning radius at 20 knots is approximately 700 meters. Each turn creates temporary safety from one bearing but exposes the beam or stern to others. The geometry is unforgiving. Pilots adjust release points based on observed maneuvers. Observers call ranges. Swordfish drop to wavetop height for final approaches. Torpedo releases are staggered over approximately 15 minutes. 2 hits are reported. The first strikes amidships on the port side, causing flooding in a previously damaged section. Damage control parties respond. The flooding is contained. The ship's overall stability remains adequate. The second hit strikes the starboard quarter near the stern at approximately 21:15 hours. The detonation occurs near frame station approximately 6, close to the steering gear compartments. Shock waves propagate through the hull structure. The rudders jam at approximately 12 degrees to port. The mechanical failure is immediate and irreversible. Steering gear compartments flood. Hydraulic lines rupture. Emergency steering procedures are attempted from auxiliary control stations. Engineers try to disconnect the jammed rudders to allow propeller-driven straight-line movement. The rudder assemblies cannot be freed. Bismarck enters a broad starboard turn, unable to maintain course. Speed is reduced to attempt regaining control through differential propeller thrust. The effort fails. The ship circles slowly to starboard, making approximately 10 to 12 knots in a wide arc. German damage reports later document the technical specifics. The torpedo detonates close enough to the steering gear to transmit shock through the hull plating into the machinery spaces. Rudder stock is bent or jammed. Control linkages are damaged. Flooding in stern compartments prevents access for repairs. Divers attempt to assess underwater damage but cannot work effectively in heavy seas and darkness. The conclusion is stark. Steering capability cannot be restored at sea. The ship can maneuver using propellers alone, but course control is compromised. Operational implications cascade. Bismarck cannot steer toward France. She cannot evade the home fleet. She cannot maneuver to comb torpedo tracks from destroyer attacks. Admiral Luchen signals Berlin. Ship unmaneuverable. We fight to the last shell. Long live the Führer. The message confirms what British shadowers observe. The circular course and reduced speed indicate catastrophic mobility loss. Admiral Tovey receives confirmation that Bismarck is crippled. King George V and Rodney alter course to close for main battery engagement at dawn. Throughout the night of 26 to 27 May, Captain Vian's destroyers harass Bismarck with torpedo attacks. The battleship's main and secondary batteries engage at short range. Several torpedoes are fired. None achieve additional significant hits. The purpose is attritional. Disrupt damage control efforts, maintain contact, and prevent any possibility of regaining mobility. Bismarck's crew remains at action stations. Ammunition expenditure continues. Fuel reserves decline. Repair efforts yield no progress. The margin was 1 hit. The Swordfish strike launched 15 aircraft, dropped 15 torpedoes, and achieved 2 hits, a 13% hit rate under extreme conditions. The critical hit struck within a few meters of optimal impact point to disable steering. Armor thickness proved irrelevant. The vulnerability was mechanical, not structural. One stern hit converted tactical contact into operational certainty. The ocean chase became a fixed engagement area the home fleet would close at dawn. The question changed from whether Bismarck could be caught to how long she could survive surface gunfire. 26 to 27 May 1941. North Atlantic, night. Captain Philip Vian's destroyer flotilla, Cossack, Maori, Sikh, Zulu, and ORP Pio Run, closes on Bismarck's position. The destroyers operate at extreme fuel endurance. Several ships report fuel states below 50%. Return to base without replenishment will be marginal. Vian's orders are to maintain contact, harass, and attack with torpedoes if tactical opportunity permits. The strategic intent is to prevent any possibility of Bismarck regaining mobility or evading the home fleet's dawn engagement. Conditions are severe. Sea state remains rough with wave heights 15 to 20 feet. Visibility alternates between clear windows and rain squalls. Bismarck's silhouette appears intermittently, backlit by star shell and searchlight. The destroyers approach in succession, using speed and maneuverability to close inside main battery range, fire torpedoes, and retire before heavy shells can achieve hits. The German battleship's 15-centimeter secondary battery and anti-aircraft guns engage continuously. Tracers and shell bursts illuminate the darkness. The engagement is chaotic, with ranges fluctuating between 3,000 and 8,000 yards. Pio Run, the Polish destroyer, closes aggressively. Her captain, Commander Eugeniusz Ploski, signals Bismarck repeatedly in plain language. "I am a Pole." The transmission is both identification and defiance. Poland, occupied since September 1939, maintains naval units in exile. Pio Run engages with 4.7-inch guns and attempts torpedo attacks. Bismarck returns fire. Near misses throw columns of water over the destroyer's deck. No hits are scored on either side during Piran's attack runs. The destroyer shadows persistently despite fuel concerns. Cossack, Maori, Sikh, and Zulu coordinate attacks from different bearings. Torpedo launches are executed at ranges between 3,000 and 5,000 yards. Bismarck maneuvers as much as her jammed rudders permit, using differential propeller thrust to alter heading. The effectiveness of the destroyer attacks is difficult to assess. Several torpedoes are observed running toward the target. Detonations are ambiguous in heavy seas. Post-action analysis suggests no additional significant hits occur, but the attacks achieve their operational purpose. Continuous pressure prevents damage control parties from working effectively, maintains precise position updates for the home fleet, and exhausts Bismarck's crew. The human cost of the night is measured in fatigue and stress. Bismarck's anti-aircraft crews have been at action stations for over 24 hours. Ammunition expenditure continues without resupply. Damage control teams work in flooded compartments attempting to restore steering capability. The effort is futile. Structural damage and flooding prevent access to critical machinery. German sailors understand the mathematics. Fuel reserves decline. The home fleet closes from the northwest. No relief force is en route. The night is an endurance test without hope of reprieve. British destroyer crews also face severe fatigue. Navigation in heavy seas at night demands constant attention. Torpedo attack runs require precise timing and coordination. Fuel margins dominate decision-making. Every mile steamed reduces the safety factor for return to base. Vian calculates that his flotilla can maintain contact until dawn, then must detach to refuel. The home fleet's heavy units will arrive in time. The destroyer's task is to ensure Bismarck remains located and unable to maneuver. That task is achieved. Throughout the night, Bismarck's radio transmits intermittent messages to fleet headquarters. Operational summaries describe the situation. Steering disabled, under continuous destroyer attack, home fleet main units expected at dawn. The tone is factual, without embellishment. Admiral Lutyens does not request relief. He acknowledges the operational reality. German Naval Command can offer no assistance. Luftwaffe units in France prepare for maximum effort at dawn. But the range is extreme and Allied fighter cover will be present. U-boats reposition, but their slow speed prevents timely intervention. The night of 26 to 27 May is the operational conclusion. The physical destruction will occur at dawn, but the decision is already irreversible. One stern hit from a Swordfish torpedo converted a mobile warship into a fixed target. The destroyers ensure that no last-minute repair restores mobility. The geometry is set. Admiral Tovey's battleships will close to gun range and engage until Bismarck is destroyed or sunk. The margin was one torpedo hit, one jammed rudder, one eliminated escape route. 27 May 1941. Dawn. Approximately 0847 hours, King George V and Rodney achieve visual contact with Bismarck. Range is approximately 25,000 yards. The German battleship maneuvers as much as propeller thrust allows, but the jammed rudders prevent effective course control. She presents a target that can be tracked and engaged methodically. Admiral Tovey signals his intent: close to decisive range and engage until the enemy is silenced. Rodney opens fire first. Her main battery comprises 9 16-inch Mark I guns mounted in 3 triple turrets, 2 forward, 1 aft. Each shell weighs approximately 2,375 pounds. At 25,000 yards, time of flight is approximately 31 seconds. Salvos are fired in succession to observe fall of shot. Spotters note shell splashes relative to target. Corrections are transmitted to fire control computers. King George V, mounting 10 14-inch guns, joins the bombardment. The combined weight of broadside exceeds 25,000 pounds of steel and explosive delivered every minute. Bismarck returns fire. Her 8 38-centimeter SK-C-34 guns engage King George V initially, then shift to Rodney as range is close. German fire control remains functional despite overnight damage. Early salvos achieve near misses. Columns of water straddle British battleships. At approximately 0902 hours, a 15-centimeter shell from Bismarck's secondary battery strikes King George V, causing minor damage. The engagement settles into attritional exchange. British fire control radar Type 284 gunnery sets provides ranging data superior to optical systems in variable visibility. Range closes steadily. Bismarck's return fire becomes less accurate as damage accumulates. At approximately 0930 hours, a 16-inch shell from Rodney strikes Bismarck's forward superstructure, destroying fire control stations. The hit disrupts centralized gunnery direction. Subsequent salvos rely on local control, reducing accuracy significantly. The British battleships close to approximately 16,000 yards, then 12,000, then 8,000. At these ranges, armor penetration is assured. Shells plunge through deck armor and detonate inside vitals. Fires erupt amidships. Secondary explosions suggest magazine or fuel ignition. Cruiser Norfolk and Dorsetshire close to launch torpedoes at short range. Norfolk fires torpedoes at approximately 5,000 yards. Dorsetshire closes to less than 3,000 yards for final attacks. Bismarck's main battery falls silent around 10:15 hours. Secondary armament continues sporadic fire. The ship lists to port as flooding progresses. British ships continue firing until approximately 10:21 hours, when Admiral Tovey orders ceasefire. Bismarck is clearly sinking. The question becomes whether she will founder due to accumulated damage or be scuttled by her crew. Survivors later report that scuttling charges are set as the ship becomes untenable. Flooding is uncontrollable. Fires rage throughout the superstructure. Casualties are heavy. Orders are given to abandon ship. Many crew members are trapped below decks. Escape routes are blocked by wreckage and flooding. Those who reach the upper deck face North Atlantic waters at approximately 48 degrees Fahrenheit. Survivable for perhaps 30 minutes without immersion suits. Life rafts and floats are deployed, but sea state complicates rescue. At approximately 10:39 hours, Bismarck capsizes and sinks. The position is approximately 400 nautical miles west of Brest, Depth approximately 4,700 meters. The sinking occurs 3 days after the Denmark Strait engagement, approximately 18 hours after the Swordfish strike disabled her steering. Of her crew of approximately 2,200, fewer than 115 are rescued. Dorsetshire and Maori recover survivors until U-boat warnings force withdrawal. German weather ship Sachsenwald and U-boat U-74 recover additional survivors over subsequent days. The casualty rate exceeds 95%. The engagement demonstrates the mathematics of naval gunfire. Once a capital ship loses mobility, concentration of fire by multiple opponents becomes geometrically favorable to the attackers. Bismarck's armor protects against single hits at extreme range but cannot sustain concentrated fire at close range over extended duration. Approximately 300 main battery shells are fired at Bismarck during the final engagement. Estimates suggest approximately 100 hits. The cumulative effect is catastrophic structural failure. The critical factor remains the stern torpedo hit on 26 May. Without that hit, Bismarck reaches France. With it, she becomes a target unable to evade destruction. 22 to 27 May 1941. Admiralty Operations Room, London. The situation map plots positions of German and British forces across the North Atlantic. Colored pins represent capital ships. Strings mark projected courses. Staff officers update positions hourly as contact reports arrive. The chase spans 5 days and approximately 2,000 nautical miles. The operational geometry reveals how carrier aviation converts tactical contact into strategic decision. Initial deployments show the challenge. Bismarck and Prinz Eugen break into the Atlantic on 22 May. British response mobilizes, Home Fleet heavy units from Scapa Flow, Force H from Gibraltar, cruisers from patrol stations, destroyers from convoy escort duties. The area of operations is vast. The North Atlantic from the Denmark Strait to the western approaches covers millions of square miles. Maintaining contact requires coordinated air and surface search. Losing contact, even temporarily, allows Bismarck to reach France unengaged. The Denmark Strait battle on 24 May produces immediate consequences. Hood's destruction shocks the Royal Navy, but Prince of Wales's hits on Bismarck contaminate forward fuel tanks, limiting range. The German operational plan shifts from offensive to defensive. British calculations show that if Bismarck maintains 30 knots toward France, she will reach Luftwaffe cover before King George V can intercept. Fuel consumption defines the geometry. Bismarck burns fuel faster than the home fleet, but damage limits her tankage. The race is mathematically close. Contact loss on 25 May threatens the operation. For approximately 24 hours, Bismarck's position is uncertain. Reconnaissance aircraft search probable areas.
HFDF Bering provide approximate fixe.
At 10:10 hours on 26 May, the Catalina sighting resolves uncertainty. The position is approximately 300 nautical miles west of France. Bismarck's course and speed indicate arrival in protected waters within 24 hours if unimpeded. The window for carrier strike narrows to hours. Ark Royal strike launches at approximately 19:10 hours on 26 May. The attack occurs approximately 120 miles from the carrier, requiring approximately 40 minutes transit each way plus attack time. Fuel margins for Swordfish are adequate but not generous. Navigation is dead reckoning with primitive radar assist. The strike achieves one stern hit at approximately 21:15 hours. Bismarck's mobility ceases. The geometry transforms. A moving target becomes fixed. King George V and Rodney, previously racing to intercept a moving target potentially out of reach, now close on a known position at assured relative speeds. The operational mathematics are stark. Without the 26 May torpedo hit, Bismarck reaches Brest by evening on 27 May. With the hit, she sinks at 10:39 hours on 27 May, approximately 400 nautical miles short of safety. The margin is one stern hit achieved by one of 15 torpedoes from one carrier strike, probability of approximately 7% for the decisive weapon. Operational research later analyzes the factors: torpedo hit probability, location probability of critical hits, vulnerability of steering systems to underwater shock, and time windows for surface engagement given fuel states. Fuel consumption dominates decision-making throughout. Admiral Tovey's heavy units steam at maximum sustainable speed, burning fuel at rates that allow limited margin for extended search. Destroyer escorts reach critical fuel states and must detach. Force H operates at extreme range from Gibraltar, requiring careful speed management. Bismarck's damaged fuel tanks reduce her effective range by approximately 1,000 nautical miles, enough to force course toward France instead of commerce raiding, but insufficient to prevent pursuit. The arithmetic of range, speed, time, and fuel defines operational possibilities. Comparative statistics highlight the resource commitment. The Royal Navy deploys 2 battleships, 1 battlecruiser, 2 carriers, 13 cruisers, and 21 destroyers in direct pursuit or supporting roles. Air assets include Swordfish from 2 carriers, Catalinas from Coastal Command, and land-based reconnaissance from multiple stations. The force concentration represents a significant fraction of available Atlantic fleet strength, driven by the imperative to prevent Bismarck from reaching convoy routes. The decision to commit such resources reflects assessment of threat. One modern battleship loose in the Atlantic could disrupt convoy operations catastrophically. The pursuit is justified by prevention of that outcome. The margin was always narrow. One 14-inch hit on 24 May creates fuel contamination. One Catalina sighting on 26 May restores contact. One stern torpedo hit on 26 May eliminates mobility. 3 critical events, each individually improbable, combine to create inevitable outcome. The operational lesson is clear. Carrier aviation provides reach and persistence that surface units alone cannot achieve. The tactical lesson is equally clear. Mobility damage is more decisive than armor penetration when the strategic objective is preventing escape. 27 May 1941. Late morning. Admiralty Offices, London. Staff officers draft the official communiqué announcing Bismarck sinking. The language is restrained, typical of British official communication. The Bismarck has been sunk. Additional details note the participation of home fleet units, Force H, and Fleet Air Arm casualty figures are preliminary. Rescue operations continue. The communiqué does not emphasize the human cost, over 2,000 German sailors lost, but focuses on the operational achievement, elimination of the German Navy's most powerful surface unit. The operational consequences are immediate. German surface fleet strategy undergoes reassessment. Grand Admiral Erich Raeder, Commander-in-Chief of the Kriegsmarine, faces questions about the viability of commerce raiding by capital ships. Bismarck's sister ship, Tirpitz, becomes more cautious in deployment. The concept of breaking heavy units into the Atlantic for sustained operations is effectively abandoned. Subsequent German naval strategy emphasizes defensive positioning in Norwegian waters to threaten Allied convoys to the Soviet Union rather than offensive Atlantic operations. British strategic planning adjusts. Convoy routing continues with awareness that German capital ships remain a potential threat, but the immediate crisis passes. Resource allocation shifts. Carriers are validated as essential fleet components. Long-range maritime patrol receives continued investment, and torpedo development incorporates lessons from the Bismarck engagement. The Fleet Air Arm's success reinforces arguments for maintaining carrier strength despite competing demands for aircraft production. The political dimension is significant. British public morale, shaken by Hood's loss, recovers with news of Bismarck's destruction. Churchill's government emphasizes the victory in public statements. The narrative becomes one of technological perseverance and tactical ingenuity. Obsolete biplanes defeating modern battleship armor through precision and coordination. The story resonates because it aligns with British self-perception, resourcefulness compensating for material limitations. For Germany, the loss is strategic and symbolic. Bismarck represents years of construction, advanced engineering, and significant resource investment. Her loss after one operational sortie is a poor return on investment. The Kriegsmarine's surface fleet, never numerically competitive with the Royal Navy, becomes even less viable as an offensive instrument. Subsequent operations, such as the Channel Dash by Scharnhorst, Gneisenau, and Prinz Eugen in February 1942, emphasize survival rather than aggression. The human cost is documented but not widely publicized at the time. Over 2,000 German sailors perish, most in the final sinking. British rescue operations recover 110 survivors before U-boat warnings force withdrawal. The German weather ship Sachsenwald and U-boat U-74 recover an additional 5. The casualty rate exceeds 95%. Post-war accounts include survivor testimonies describing the final hours: flooding, fires, failed evacuation attempts, and the capsizing. The North Atlantic in late May offers approximately 30 minutes of survivability without immersion protection. Most casualties occur from hypothermia rather than direct combat injuries. Technological lessons are incorporated into doctrine. The 18-inch Mark 12 torpedo proves effective with contact pistols. Magnetic pistols are reassessed for reliability. Swordfish tactics, low altitude, multi-bearing attacks, coordinated timing become standard. Carrier strike doctrine emphasizes mobility damage over armor penetration when targeting capital ships. Anti-aircraft defenses are analyzed for effectiveness against low-speed, low-altitude threats. Depression angle limitations are acknowledged as vulnerabilities. The engagement becomes a case study in operational planning, force coordination, and the integration of air and surface assets. The Bismarck chase demonstrates the operational reach of carrier aviation. A surface-only pursuit would likely fail due to Bismarck's speed advantage and fuel contamination providing insufficient slowing effect. The Swordfish strike achieves what surface gunfire alone could not: decisive mobility kill at range exceeding battleship gun engagement distance. The operational lesson is clear: carriers provide striking power that extends beyond the visual horizon and surface gun range, enabling pursuit and engagement of targets that would otherwise evade. The strategic lesson is equally important. No single surface unit, regardless of armor and firepower, can operate effectively when opposed by coordinated air and surface forces with persistent reconnaissance. Bismarck's isolation, no air cover, no supporting surface units, limited fuel, creates conditions where concentration of force becomes inevitable. The mathematics favor the side that can mass power at decisive points. The Royal Navy masses carriers, battleships, cruisers, and destroyers against one battleship. The outcome is statistically determined once mobility is lost. The aftermath shapes subsequent naval campaigns. The Pacific War, beginning 7 months later, validates carrier aviation as the decisive arm. Battleships remain valuable for shore bombardment and anti-aircraft protection but lose primacy in fleet engagements. The Bismarck chase, occurring when battleship doctrine still dominates, provides early evidence of the transition. One stern torpedo hit from an obsolete biplane changes the operational geometry more decisively than hundreds of heavy shells fired at extreme range during the Denmark Strait engagement. The lesson is tactical and strategic. Mobility matters more than armor, precision matters more than weight of fire, and coordination matters more than individual unit capability. June 1989. North Atlantic, approximately 600 kilometers west of Brest. The research vessel Starella deploys a deep-sea remotely operated vehicle. The expedition, led by oceanographer Robert Ballard, who previously located Titanic, searches for Bismarck's wreck site. Coordinates are calculated from historical position reports and drift analysis. At approximately 4,700 meters depth, sonar contacts resolve into a massive hull structure. The wreck is located. 48 years after sinking, Bismarck rests on the abyssal plain, upright and largely intact despite the catastrophic forces of her final battle. Video footage reveals details. The hull shows extensive damage consistent with heavy shellfire and internal explosions. Turrets are displaced, indicating detonations within the ship. The stern section shows damage consistent with torpedo impact, the area where the decisive hit on 26 May 1941 jammed the rudders. Armor plating, despite shell hits, remains largely intact, illustrating the structural strength that made the ship formidable. The wreck site becomes a war grave. No artifacts are recovered. The German government requests the site remain undisturbed as a memorial. The technology that sank Bismarck contrasts sharply with the technology that locates her. The ferry Swordfish, fabric-covered biplane, open cockpit, Maximum speed approximately 140 miles per hour. Represents the end of an era. By 1989, naval aviation operates jet aircraft with speeds exceeding Mach 2. The 18-inch Mark 12 torpedo, delivered at wavetop height through visual aiming, is succeeded by guided missiles with ranges measured in hundreds of miles. The technological gap between 1941 and 1989 exceeds the gap between sail and steam. Yet, the operational principles remain consistent. Mobility damage is more decisive than armor penetration. Coordinated attacks from multiple bearings overwhelm defenses. Reconnaissance enables targeting. Persistence defeats evasion. The tools change, the geometry does not. Modern anti-ship weapons employ terminal guidance and high-explosive shaped charges, but the objective remains identical. Achieve hits in vulnerable areas to degrade or eliminate the target's combat capability. Bismarck's stern torpedo hit illustrates the principle that modern doctrine codifies. Survivor accounts add human dimension to technical analysis. Approximately 115 survivors of Bismarck provide post-war testimonies. Baron Burkhard von Mullenheim-Rechberg, the senior surviving officer, publishes memoirs describing the final engagement. His account details the progressive loss of fire control, flooding, and eventual abandonment. The testimony is factual, without embellishment, consistent with the documentary record. Other survivors describe the chaos of abandoning ship, the cold of the North Atlantic, and the fortune of being among the few rescued. Their accounts emphasize the arbitrary nature of survival. Location on the ship when sinking began, proximity to life rafts, timing of rescue before U-boat warnings forced British ships to withdraw. The ferry Swordfish outlasts the Bismarck. The aircraft remains in frontline service until 1945, participating in operations across all theaters. Final production ceases in August 1944 after 2,391 airframes. The type's longevity reflects practical utility. Simple construction enables field maintenance, slow speed permits short deck operations, and reliability sustains sortie rates. The Swordfish becomes an example of adequate technology properly employed defeating superior technology improperly positioned. Bismarck's advanced fire control and heavy armor cannot compensate for immobility created by a weapon theoretically inferior. The historical memory of the chase evolves. Immediate post-war British accounts emphasize the technological triumph. Obsolete biplanes defeating modern battleship. German accounts focus on the tactical execution of the final battle and the heroism of Bismarck's crew. Later analysis adopts a more balanced view. Bismarck's operational planning contained critical flaws: insufficient refueling support, no air cover, isolation from supporting units. The Royal Navy's response demonstrated superior operational coordination, integrating air reconnaissance, carrier strike, surface shadowing, and concentrated gunfire into a cohesive pursuit. The engagement becomes a case study in operational art. How dispersed assets are synchronized to achieve decisive effect against a numerically superior individual unit. The wreck remains undisturbed. Divers and submersibles visit periodically for documentation, but no salvage occurs. The site is legally protected as a war grave under international maritime law. Approximately 2,200 crew members rest with the ship. The memorial function is acknowledged by both Germany and Britain. Commemorations occur on anniversaries, emphasizing shared loss rather than partisan victory. The human cost: over 2,000 German sailors, 3 British sailors from Hood, additional casualties from supporting actions, reminds that operational success is measured in objectives achieved, but human cost transcends operational calculus. The question posed in the prologue, how did slow biplanes create decisive mechanical failure aboard Germany's most modern battleship, finds its answer in accumulated details. A 14-inch shell contaminates fuel on 24 May, forcing course toward France. A Catalina fixes position on 26 May, enabling carrier strike. 15 Swordfish attack from multiple bearings on 26 May evening, achieving 1 stern hit. That hit jams rudders. Mobility loss enables surface engagement on 27 May. The chain is fragile. Each link is improbable. The combination is decisive. The margin is narrow: 1 torpedo, 388 pounds of TNT, striking within meters of optimal impact point. Technology, training, coordination, and chance converge into outcome. The memory endures not because the technology is remarkable, the Swordfish is deliberately archaic even in 1941, but because the human and operational story illustrates timeless principles. Perseverance compensates for material disadvantage. Coordination multiplies individual capability. Precision achieves what mass cannot. The story is factual, documented, and repeatable in analysis. It requires no embellishment. The numbers speak. 15 aircraft, 1 decisive hit, 1 jammed rudder, 1 eliminated escape route, 1 sunk battleship. The mathematics are simple. The execution is complex. The outcome is certain once the stern torpedo strikes. The question answered, the account closes.